Well, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today for this fun and interactive presentation that's called Heads Up for Healthier Brains. Our session today is all about discussing and promoting good brain health as we age. And we're really happy that you're here to learn about the importance of brain health and to hear about some brain healthy tips that may help to reduce your risk of developing dementia. My name is Sarah Cook, and with me today is Chris Van Leuven, and we make up the education team at the Alzheimer's Society of Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, Northumberland, and Halliburton. And we're really excited for this opportunity to collaborate to bring you this presentation and to both talk about and to get to demonstrate the importance of keeping our brains healthy and active by making some important choices to maintain and sometimes to even improve our overall health and well-being. We do recognize that throughout our discussion today that several questions may come up, and just in the interest of time and because we're not always able to see the chat pod while we're sharing the PowerPoint screen, we would just like to ask you, if you don't mind, if you could just hold your questions to the end of the presentation. We don't want you to forget your questions, so please feel free to jot it down on a piece of paper, or you can put it into the chat pod, and then Chris and I will go through those questions at the very end of the presentation and address those for you. So we thank you in advance for your understanding and for your help with that. So let's get started by talking about brain health. As you can see from the resource that's shown here on the screen, on the slide in front of you, the Alzheimer's Society has some very helpful information on brain health and brain health promotion and practice. And the brochure that's called Heads Up for Healthier Brains, it's available in both a hard copy form and in an electronic version that's on our website. And so you don't have to take any notes today because this resource really is a great compilation of all the strategies that anyone can put into practice to boost their brain health. So dementia, it develops when there are so many risk factors for the disease that they overwhelm the brain's ability to maintain itself and to even repair itself. And while there are some risk factors that you can't control, such as, age and genetics, reducing the effects of risk factors that can be controlled really makes good sense if you want to try and reduce that risk of developing dementia as you continue to age. When you think of it, your brain is truly one of your most vital organs. It plays a key role in every action that we take and in every thought that we have. And the brain is really like the cockpit of a plane or the control center of our bodies. It's responsible for helping to make everything else work. Though you can't see it, your brain really needs to be looked after and to be exercised regularly, just like the rest of your body does. So by following some of the tips and strategies that we're going to discuss today, you're not only reducing your risk of dementia, but you're looking after your long-term brain health, which is so important. You're also reducing your risk of other cognitive and chronic diseases, and in general, protecting your overall health. So a common question that we often get asked at the Alzheimer's Society is, can dementia actually be prevented? Well, unfortunately, there are no guarantees that dementia can be prevented. We often speak of lifestyle factors and how they can either increase or decrease our risk of developing dementia. What we know is that by making those healthy lifestyle choices, we can really help to keep our brains as healthy as possible as we age. And some people may wonder and say things like, I'm 85 years old. Will anything I do at this point in my life really help my brain health? And of course, then other younger individuals often think that dementia is an old person's disease and that they really don't need to pay that much attention to brain health when they're young. Well, the message that we want to share with you is that it's never too soon or too late to make changes that can improve your brain's ability to sustain that long term health that we were just speaking of, and to also fight illness and infection, which is very, very important. And I'll turn it over to Chris.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. So when we talk about how to be good to our brains, there's these 6 different areas that we like to consider. So the first one is to challenge your brain. The next one's to be socially active, follow a healthy diet, be physically active, manage stress, and make conscious and safe choices. And through our presentation today, we're going to go through these 6 different areas. And we're going to start with challenging your brain. In each of the healthy brain promotion areas that we're going to talk about in this session, it's always helpful to look at what research is telling us, and then to look at some of the best tips and strategies for maintaining and improving our brain health in those areas. So in keeping with that idea, here's what the research is telling us about the benefits of challenging yourself and your brain. Studies show that keeping our brains active each and every day can help us to reduce that risk of developing dementia. Just like physical activity, when we get out and exercise, improves our body's ability to function, exercising your brain can reduce your risk of dementia. When we think about how we approach our daily routines, many of us get in the habit of finding the most efficient way of doing something, and we always tend to default to that same way of doing it. For example, we might find the quickest route to work that involves the least amount of traffic. And we often have a morning routine that's the same, or we approach doing our chores in the same way every time. And while it's really helpful to find the quickest or most efficient way of doing something, after a while, our brain really doesn't have to think about it anymore and how to do it. And so kind of like our brain goes into autopilot. We start to accomplish a task without really having to think about it at all. And therefore, we're using those same neural pathways and not activating any new ones. By approaching our routines in new ways, you engage new or rarely used mental pathways. It can be as simple as dialing a phone number or brushing your hair with your less dominant hand. Or it can be complex, maybe as complex as learning a new language or learning how to play a musical instrument. But remember, the goal is to give your brain a new experience and a workout every day. Challenging your brain can reduce depression and social isolation, which are also considered risk factors for dementia. We're now going to discuss some of the ways that you can challenge your brain every day. Here's 5 tips for challenging your brain. And the first one is to pursue lifelong learning. So by constantly learning new things and challenging your brain throughout life, you can help build up your cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve might be a new term for you, but what it means is your brain's ability to improvise and find alternate ways of getting something done or getting a task done. When a person has a good cognitive reserve, the brain can change the way it operates and make added resources available to cope with challenges. Cognitive reserve is developed by a lifetime of education and curiosity to help your brain better cope with any failures or declines that it might face. And research has shown that people with a greater cognitive reserve are better able to stave off symptoms of degenerative brain changes associated with dementia or other brain diseases like Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, or even a stroke. Brain challenging activities can help to build up that cognitive reserve. Learning a new language, which you mentioned before, or taking up new hobbies are just a couple of good examples of brain challenging examples or activities that are helpful with this process. The second tip for challenging your brain is to play games that involve your mind. Examples of brain challenging games can be things like chess, tabletop games, video games, word puzzles, if you like Wordle, number puzzles like Sudoku, jigsaws, crossword puzzles, brain teasers, and memory games. For games on your computer, your tablet, or your iPhone, find games where you can play with and interact with other people, and that makes those activities even more fun. The third tip for challenging your brain is to break your routine. So we mentioned that earlier, but activating new or rarely used neural pathways can be very helpful for your brain. We can break our routine and activate these mental pathways in a variety of different ways. A small challenge is to try changing up how you normally tackle your daily routine. You could take a different route to the grocery store. You could change the order of your morning routine. So maybe if you're always shower, breakfast, brush your teeth, maybe you try eating breakfast first. And trying something different than what you're used to might prove more difficult than you think. So it's good to challenge your brain in that way. The fourth tip is to engage in cultural activities. So we've kind of gone through a period of time where not a lot was happening, but things are starting to come back. So you can check out what's happening in your area, like an exhibit at the museum or an upcoming concert. We're lucky that where we live, we have lots of cultural opportunities around us, whether right here locally or if you're up for making a short trip to Toronto. Those are great places to find cultural activities and museums. You can attend plays or galleries. And some of those things, because of the COVID pandemic, have become virtual. So you can even do like virtual museum tours. After attending an event, another brain boosting tip is to discuss what you saw with a friend or family member. And our last and final tip for challenging your brain is to cross-train your brain. So you might have heard about professional athletes who train with a wide diversity of activities in order to improve performance in their main sport. For example, a tennis player might do weightlifting and running to improve their game on the courts. If we want to keep our brains as sharp as possible for as long as possible, we should train them in multiple areas of cognitive function. So that would include things like visual perception and interpretation, decision making, managing distractions, maintaining focus, as well as training the ability to recall words and numbers. Ask yourself, what's something that you're not good at doing, or an activity that you feel that you might be able to do better? Then make a commitment to work on how you might improve it and give your brain some flexibility. You could try a variety of different challenges instead of sticking to one particular area of focus. Doing only one activity, such as like just doing the crossword, won't in and of itself contribute to overall brain health. But what's needed is that variety of different brain challenges to train all of our different brain functions. So This is my favorite part of this presentation. We're going to dip in and do some different ways to challenge our brains with a few brain teasers. And Sarah is going to kick us off with the first one.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so this brain teaser, I'm going to read it out loud. And you can also follow along on the screen if you'd like, but I want you to give this one a try. So here we go. Luke had it before. Paul had it behind. Matthew never had it at all. Boys don't have it, but all girls have it once. Old Mr. Mulligan had it twice in succession. But Dr. Lowell, well, he had it before and behind, and he had it twice as bad behind as before. So what is it? What is it? And you can either unmute if you've got the answer. You can try to put it in the chat pod, and Chris and I'll try to look and see if we can see it. But let's see if you can come up with the answer to this brain teaser. Any ideas?
L.
Oh, Janice. Janice says, say it again, Janice.
L, the letter L.
The letter L. Oh, we didn't fool you. I thought maybe we would fool somebody today. Because
Julie was really quick too, Sarah. Julie was really quick in the chat with that letter L. Yeah.
And she got the letter L too. Oh my goodness. Well, you are all on the ball today. That's amazing. It is the letter L. And a lot of people they don't always think they're looking for something, and they don't really realize how literal you have to be to see the answer. So the L is the key, the letter L. So Luke had it before. If you can follow my cursor, Paul had it behind. Of course, Matthew doesn't have it. Boys don't have it, but all girls have it once. Old Mr. Mulligan has it twice in succession. But Dr. Lowe, he's my favorite because he has it both before and behind, but he had it twice as bad behind as before. So excellent job on that one. You got that one very quick. Okay, we're going to try another one here. And this is a picture image. And I want to know, what do you see when you look at this picture image? Tell us what you see. Again, feel free to unmute, or you can type it into the chat pod. It seems that Chris is able to see the chat pod, so that's great. What do you see here in this image? You may see a few different things going on.
Julie says in the chat that she can see a young lady and an old lady.
Oh, she can see a young lady and an old lady. Amazing. Anyone else? See anybody different?
I kind of see an old man with a mustache.
Oh, so Janice sees the old man with kind of a larger nose and a mustache. A lot of people see the young lady who can be pictured here. This would be her eye and her nose and her chin. And usually, so Julie got this, but a lot of folks, it takes them a bit to be able to see that indeed there's another person in this picture, and it's the old woman. And if you look at this, the man's mustache as doubling as the woman's kind of scarf, the old woman's chin would be here, along with her mouth and her nose, and this would be her eye. So this is called family of three, because there's actually three different images in this, and this is testing the perceptual processing areas of your brain. So this is allowing your brain to look at an image and detect what it sees. So it's a very good way of exercising your brain, and you did an excellent job. Thanks for those great answers. I'm going to turn it back to Chris for the next one.
All right. So this one, we want to know, what is the number of the parking spot that's being covered up by the car? Obviously, there's a sequence of numbers happening. And can you figure out what number is underneath that car that we can't see? And once again, feel free to shout it out, or pop it in the chat if you think you might know. Julie says in the chat that her guess is 78. And that is close, Julie. You are so close, but not quite there. "78" is a really close guess.
I don't have a clue on this one.
It's tricky. It is a tricky one. I'm going to give you a hint. Think of the numbers as how they would look if you were pulling into the parking space. Oh, you're driving into the parking space, and what would that number look like?
87.
You're right. Good job. Yes, so Karen got it in the chat as well, 87. So the key here is that the numbers are upside down. So in actuality, the sequence of the number goes 86, and the car is covering up 87, and then it's 80, 89, 90, and 91. But it's really tricky. So when you first look at it, you definitely think that you're seeing the numbers right side up, and it makes no sense at all. Good job, everyone. All right. So this is actually one of the most difficult optical illusions for the human brain to process. So this is an image, and it is an image of something. And if you look at this image, what is it that you see? Oh, Julie was fast in the chat. She says that she sees a cow. And she's right. Does anyone else see that cow? I feel like Audrey's shaking her head. Okay, so Sarah switched the slides for us. So here we've got the cow outlined in red. I know the first time I saw the image, I thought the fence was some kind of like x-ray of a skull. I thought it was teeth. But yeah, so it's actually a cow. You can see it's outlined, and you can see its black ears and its black nose, and it's standing kind of close to a fence. The one really interesting thing about this brain teaser is that now that you've seen the cow, your brain's always going to remember that it's a cow. So if we were to show this to you again next week, you'd see that cow right away.
I'm wondering, I can see a rabbit. The rabbit ears go towards the middle at the top, and the rabbit nose, like you take off the ear of the cow, the left-hand ear, and then go down, and the paws and the back of the ear, like the rabbit is looking to the left.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying with the kind of the left side of the cow's face looks a little like a bunny.
Yeah, and the bunny's back is going down on the other side, like the ears are up and cut off at the top. And he has an eye sort of in the middle of the skull of the cow.
Okay.
If you take off the cow picture, like if you go back to the other one, you might see the rabbit more, but that's
what jumped out to you at first was a picture of a bunny. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the nose is just at where the cow's ear, it stops at the cow's ear, and it's the front of the rabbit is the shadow along the cow's nose.
Yes. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Definitely a nicer vision than a skull in an x-ray that I'd seen when I first saw this picture.
Well,
but yeah, I
can
can
the cow now.
For sure. And yes, but now that you've seen like the cleared up image of this cow, your brain is always going to see the cow, which is really interesting.
Right, right.
Okay, so thanks, Chris. That one, cow is always a really amazing one to do because, yeah, it's the power of your brain learning how to perceive that. So that's really neat. Now, we're going to try something a little bit different. Maybe some of you have seen these puzzles that are called Rebus puzzles, and you can see how they're spelled there on the screen so that if you ever want to look them up, you can find them online, you can find books of them. But Rebus puzzles essentially contain common phrases or sayings in a picture puzzle format. So in each of the colored boxes, there is a different message or a different saying or a phrase, and it's your job to determine the answer that's contained in each one of those colored boxes. So I put a note there. There's no particular order. If you think of one of them, if you think you know it, you can either put it into the chat pod or you can just unmute and shout it out. But each one of these is a little puzzle to figure out.
Top left would be once in a blue moon.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so this
And
top
then-
left is once in a blue moon. Excellent.
And then first aid.
Right.
First aid, great, because it's pointing to the first aid in the series of 3 aids. Excellent. You got
Julie in
the-
the
you
chat got those two as well. And she also saw in the middle one, 2 funny 4 words. She caught that.
Oh, that's good.
Great job. 2 funny 4 words.
Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
Karen,
Fish in a small pond. Oh, somebody got that in the chat as well.
yes, and
So-
Karen is also seen in the one on the right, that one in the yellowish orange box, that it's scrambled eggs.
It is indeed
Oh,
scrambled eggs. And you're
That's
right here. It
cool.
is big fish in a little pond. Now, this is the one in the red box is always the one left to the end. It's always seemingly the trickiest to figure out, but I always see it's a bit of a groaner when you find out what it is. So any ideas what's here in the red box?
Karen threw out a guess of repeat myself, and she's close.
Ah, she's
close.
very close. Nice job. Nice job.
Repeat after me.
Oh, is that Audrey that got
Oh.
that? Who got that?
As Janice.
Janice, amazing. It is repeat after me because repeat comes after me. So, oh, that's fantastic. Well, these
Yeah.
weren't hard for you at all. You all got them, but hopefully you enjoy doing that. It's a little bit a different way of challenging your brain because you're taking those kind of picture puzzles and trying to make sense of them. So very impressive. Okay, well, we're going to try something completely different in the next one. And this is a close-up image. So this is a photographer who has taken a fantastic camera and zoomed right in on an object. And your job is to tell us, what is the object in this extreme close-up image? Any ideas? Again, you can use the chat pod or you can unmute and share your answer.
Julie guessed in the chat an anthill, and I know when I first saw this picture, I for sure thought it was an ant farm as well.
Oh, that's a great guess. Not quite right, but that's a great guess. Any others?
Hello. Karen threw out tennis ball in the chat. Wondering if it's maybe a tennis.
Oh, very interesting thought as well. Not quite the answer, but that is a great guess.
Cantaloupe.
Ooh, is that Lee?
Yes.
Lee? Yes, you are right. It is a cantaloupe. It's the rind on the cantaloupe.
Cantaloupe.
Ah, fantastic job. You got it. You got it. It's kind of the cantaloupes don't always have the nicest look on the outside, do they? Especially when you get up close to see them. Fantastic job. Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Chris because she's going to do the next one with you.
Yes, and I believe that this is the last one too. So it's a good one though. Frank's father has 5 sons. If the names of his sons are Fifi, Fi-Fi, Fofo, Fufu, respectively, then what would be the name of his fifth son?
Frank.
Frank, yeah.
Yes. Oh, this one didn't catch you guys at all. You're absolutely right. It starts out and it says Frank's father has 5 sons. We know that 4 of them have their names up on the screen, Fifi, Fi-Fi, Fofo, and Fufu. And the 5th son, if it's Frank's father, has to be Frank.
We
Great
didn't
job,
catch
everybody.
anyone, Chris. We
No.
usually catch a couple there because they think it's fa-fa, but
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
but fantastic, fantastic.
Frank's
Okay.
father, 5 sons. It gives you the 4 other names, so it's Frank.
Well, hopefully you had some
Right.
fun while doing those brain teasers and that your brain got a little workout in the process. You know, these brain teasers like this are widely available in a variety of different types, just like the ones that we just did together. And you can, you know, find them online. You can find them in different books at your library or your local bookstore. But they really are lots of fun, and it's great if you can team up and you know, do them with another person. It's always lots of fun. So hopefully you enjoyed those. So we're going to continue now our discussion by looking at one aspect of brain health that is really, really important, and that is being socially active. And you might be wondering, well, why is social activity such a key component to being good to our brains? And this is the reason. So research shows that regularly interacting with others may actually help to lessen your risk of developing dementia. In particular, being socially active can help to reduce 2 key risk factors for dementia. And those 2 risk factors are depression and social isolation. So having an active social life can reduce your stress, it can brighten your mood, and it can keep your relationships with others in your life strong. Humans are social beings, and connecting with others is an important part of our livelihood. And some of us, we may be on the more reserved or introverted side, while others may be much more social and extroverted. But whatever the case, it's important that we stay socially active in a way that works for each of us. Whether we realize it or not, our brain is quite active when we're in a conversation with someone or when we're interacting with others. And that could be an old friend, it could be a new acquaintance, somebody that we meet, or hey, it could even be the family pet. As I know, some of us will have those ongoing conversations with our pets. But staying connected socially really helps you to stay connected mentally too. It's a win-win. And we do understand that, you know, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has created a number of barriers when it comes to remaining socially active. And, you know, as we're working our way out of that pandemic, let's hope, but we can still strive to stay as socially active as possible through new and creative ways, you know, while also identifying some different ways that we can incorporate social activity into our life when things do fully return to normal. Or maybe it's more accurate to say our new version of normal. So let's take a look together at some tips to keep in mind for how to stay social. So here's 5 tips for us to keep in mind. So the first one up there is to make the most of your daily opportunities to socialize. So think about the ways that you could do this. Chat with your taxi driver en route to where you're going, or the store clerk while they're ringing up your purchases. Make conversation in the elevator, even if it's just about the weather, that's okay. And we all have a lot to talk about, you know, with our current weather recently. There are many opportunities for social interaction available to us. We just need to recognize when those opportunities do present themselves. So that's key. The second one, I really like this one. Practice a random act of kindness. And this can be big or small. So I want you to think outside the box here. It could be as small as smiling at someone else that's passing by, or just holding the door open for another person. It could even be as thoughtful as paying for someone's coffee order in the drive-thru. We've heard that that's been happening, but paying your happiness forward will not only brighten someone else's day, but it will brighten your day too. You'll feel really good about that act. The third one is to find some time to volunteer. And whether that's participating in a service club or perhaps it's joining a hobby group, you'll find that there are many healthy benefits to volunteering, because volunteering can help to build self-esteem and confidence. And many people find that it expands their network of social support as well. It's a really lovely way to make a positive contribution. And at the same time, it keeps your brain sharp um, while you're making that contribution. So consider volunteering if you can. The fourth one there is to combine social interaction with an activity of some kind. So it could be a physical activity like walking together with another person or a group of people, taking part in a fitness class. Or maybe it's a brain challenging activity such as a book club discussion. Perhaps you're part of a book club. Maybe it's attending a play with others. Maybe it's playing a game or doing some brain teasers online with a friend, just like we've done today. So that's a lot of fun. You can um, do that activity with other people. Enjoy yourself while you positively impact your brain health in multiple ways. And the reason we say that is because it helps us mentally, it helps us physically, emotionally, and socially. So it really is a big win. Now, the fifth one is to maintain old friendships and to make new ones. So staying social through work or volunteer activities, through travel, because that's now opening up a little bit more, through our hobbies and our interactions and activities with family and friends. We want to keep up those old friendships and make some new ones, and that could be whether we're talking on the telephone, maybe it's chatting online by email or through Facebook, even writing an old-fashioned letter. I've been hearing a lot about that in the last couple of years. Lots of folks saying they're writing back to letter writing. Consider trying, one of the many video chat apps like Zoom or FaceTime that helps us to maintain that face-to-face conversation, but from a safe and social distance, which we know is still very important to many of us. And of course, another just addendum to what we've talked about here is to be open to new experiences overall. So accepting invitations from others and not forgetting to extend a few of your own invitations. If you've always wanted to try something new, consider, finding a group or maybe a club that shares that same interest. So it could be a beginner's group for woodworking if that appeals to you, or it could even be an exercise group. But try to stay open-minded and be open to experiencing new things. I'm going to turn it back to Chris, who's going to continue talking about the third area.
Thanks, Sarah. So yeah, the third area that we're going to explore today when we're discussing how to keep our brains healthy and active as we age is how to eat well for brain health. We hear from our doctors often and our nutritionists or naturopaths that it's important that we eat well for our heart health, but we don't often hear about eating well for our brain health. So we know, or we hear that eating well what's good for the heart is good for the brain. But let's explore a little bit more in depth how to eat well to maintain and enhance that brain health. So I'm not sure if you know, but conditions like heart disease and stroke and diabetes can increase our risk of developing dementia. And we know that eating healthy can help to reduce that risk. So because heart disease, stroke, and diabetes are risk factors for dementia. We can also say that another benefit of a good diet is good brain health. Healthy dietary choices not only help to improve our general health, in the long term, nutritious food helps to maintain brain function and fight off that cognitive decline. So making a conscious effort to eat healthy, it also might mean that we're thinking about what we're putting into our bodies. So we might be consuming less alcohol, and our cholesterol might be lower because we're thinking about those healthy foods. We may experience some weight loss as a result of eating healthier, and we might have more energy for participating in physical activity. And overall, a healthy diet can eliminate some of those common risk factors, including obesity, for developing dementia. So here are 5 tips for eating well for our brain health. And the first tip is to follow the Canada Food Guide. And it recommends dietary choices and eating habits that coincide with what we know about eating well for brain health. Start by being sure to have plenty of vegetables and fruits. Fresh, frozen, or canned veggies and fruits are all healthy choices. Next, it's important to choose whole grain foods. So that can be whole grain pasta, bread, crackers, cereal, and brown rice. And lastly, make sure to include protein in your diet. Protein foods can include animal-based protein, that's dairy products, meats, fish, eggs, as well as plant-based protein like beans, lentils, and nuts. Strive to have that plant-based protein a little more often than the animal-based protein. In terms of beverages, make your drink of choice water. And Food Guide also recommends that we limit those foods, including pre-packaged and processed foods that tend to be higher in sodium or salt, sugars, and saturated fats. The second tip on our list here is to enjoy a variety of food in many different colors. So we encourage you to put a rainbow of colors on your plate. Blue and purple fruits and vegetables in particular tend to be packed with antioxidants. And they're really important for brain health because antioxidants are kind of the street sweepers in our bodies, and they clean up any waste or byproducts from our body processes. Green fruits and vegetables are beneficial for our bone health. They help our teeth, and they can be important for keeping our vision strong. So those green veggies, especially your leafy greens like spinach and kale, are good healthy choices. The third tip is to find healthy ways to add flavor to your meals. So a healthy diet can still be a tasty diet, I promise. Herbs, spices, nuts, and olives are all healthy add-in options. But while we add flavor to our food, we still have to be conscious to not be loading in the salt. I mean, salt is tasty, but we need to limit that intake of sodium for our brain health. Number 4 is to be mindful of your eating habits. So that's just thinking about and being conscious of your portion sizes, making sure that we're choosing healthy snacks, and again, drinking plenty of water. And the last tip is to plan our meals in advance. So by developing healthy eating patterns, you don't just leave your diet to chance. You're not making last minute decisions, which might not always be the healthiest ones. There are meal planning apps available and websites that can help you to plan ahead, cook your own food, and decide which recipes are going to work best for you, even if you have a busy schedule. Now I'm going to pass things back over to Sarah.
And thanks, Chris. So the next aspect of brain health that we're going to discuss is the importance of being physically active each and every day. And again, let's start with the research. So research tells us that regular exercise and activity has many benefits to our overall health and well-being for a whole variety of reasons. It not only helps to reduce stress and improve our mood, but it has many other advantages, which we're going to talk about next. So people who exercise or engage in, what we refer to as regular, moderate physical activity, they're much less likely to develop conditions like heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. All of those conditions that tend to be associated with an increased risk of developing dementia. And these are the types of conditions that we need to avoid as we age so that we can, remain as strong and healthy as possible. You may be wondering why. You might be asking, why is it so important to engage in physical activity each and every day? Well, the key reason is that physical activity is helpful to the brain and to the body because when we get physically active, we help to get the blood pumping to the brain. And when we get that blood circulating in the brain, this blood helps to nourish the cells with some important nutrients and oxygen. And the research is now suggesting that it can even succeed in encouraging the generation of new brain cells. So this is an area where they had not really explored before, but that's what it's currently suggesting. So it's pretty exciting. And of course, research has shown that being physically active can reduce risk factors for dementia, which include, depression and diabetes and high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, and just that general lack of physical activity. So let's look at some ways that we can get active. And again, we've got 5 tips here for you. So I want to start it by saying that the idea of exercise or a physical activity can be overwhelming to many people, especially if they're not particularly fond of exercising or if they have physical limitations or pain that may be a barrier to engaging in exercise. It could even be that they have challenges with their balance and their mobility. So here are some great tips to get active in a safe, gentle, and supportive way. So the first thing to think about is starting where you can and setting reasonable goals for yourself. If you feel that you have little opportunity to exercise, start by just adding a little bit of physical activity into your daily routine. Maybe you could choose a brisk walk to the store rather than driving the car there if it's not too far. Maybe it's taking the stairs instead of the elevator or the escalator. If it's just, 1 or 2 floors and if physical limitations aren't a barrier. Set goals that work for you and your current abilities. That's the key. Sometimes we look at what others are doing and we get overwhelmed with the idea of having to accomplish those very same things. So we need to look at our own unique situation and decide what is reasonable and what is achievable for us. The second one is to, and I really like this one, is to think of it as activity and not exercise. And that term exercise can feel a bit overwhelming if, when we think of exercise, we think of strenuous activity. And that's usually where our brains go when we hear that term. Choose activities and sports that you enjoy. And then physical activity won't seem just like a chore or a task that you've got to tick off the list for the day. When we choose those activities that we enjoy and that we feel good about, we're much more likely to stick to them and to continue to make them part of that daily routine. So that's a key strategy right there. The third one is once you get going, aim for at least 150 minutes of what we refer to as moderate to vigorous activity in a week. And so, you think about moderate activities as being something like walking the dog or maybe going for a bicycle ride around the neighborhood. And vigorous activities could include swimming if you really enjoy that. And of course, we're getting into the warmer temperatures, so that's a great activity. Maybe it's going for a run if you feel that you can do that. If you have reduced mobility, try some activities that can help you to maintain your balance and to prevent falls. So things like gentle yoga or Tai Chi might be activities that work for you. Number 4 is to consider aerobic activities. And it is so helpful to recognize that aerobic activities can really help to maintain our general fitness levels. So when you think of aerobic activities, they could be walking, swimming, hiking, dancing. Those help to maintain that general fitness because they get your heart rate up a little bit and they get that blood pumping through the body and to the brain. Experts still recommend that walking is one of the most safest and most effective forms of aerobic exercise. So again, it's getting that heart rate up and doing something enjoyable at the same time. And the 5th tip that we have here for being physically active is to plan out your physical activity with someone that you know. Because that way you're much more likely to keep active while you also gain those brain healthy benefits that we just talked about of the social interaction piece. So physical activity, I don't know about you, but for me, physical activity is always much more fun and enjoyable when you can be doing and engaging in it with someone else. And just a final note that I want to say here under physical activity is that it's important to check with your doctor about the kinds of physical activity that may be right for you. Or if you do have any specific health concerns, you want to be sure that you're engaging in physical activities that are safe and that don't aggravate a possible underlying physical or health condition. So always, we recommend you speak with your healthcare provider to make sure that the activity is safe and helpful for you. Okay, and Chris is going to talk to us about the next strategy.
Right, so the 5th area of brain health that we're going to discuss is the importance of managing stress. So all of us experience stress. It's a part of our everyday life, you know what, it can be helpful to our brain health to live under a little bit of stress. But it's important to be able to manage that stress and lower the stress in our lives. Because when stress persists over time, it can cause vascular changes and chemical imbalances that are damaging to the brain and to the other cells in our bodies. By managing or lowering your stress, you can improve your brain health and reduce that risk of dementia. In fact, managing your stress can reduce your risk of depression. It can reduce high blood pressure. And both of those things are risk factors for dementia as well. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at stress and brain health. So we've got 5 tips here for helping to manage stress. And managing our stress is important, but it's first important to learn to recognize the signs of stress that let us know that that's what we're experiencing. Signs of stress can be different for everyone. One person might get a headache when they're stressed, while another person might have feelings of anxiety. So it's important not to ignore these signs of stress and to take action to reduce stress. The signs of stress might be emotional, and emotional signs of stress can be feelings of depression, tension, it's that anxiety. We might be more quick to anger when we're stressed. We might be feeling worried or fearful. Physical signs of stress include headaches, fatigue, insomnia, which, you're going to experience that fatigue if you're not sleeping properly, and sweating even. A mental sign of stress can be poor concentration. Memory loss is a mental sign of stress. indecisiveness, or confusion. And behavioral signs of stress include fidgeting, overeating. That's happens to a lot of us when we're feeling stressed. We turn to the fridge. Alcohol use or drug abuse as well. The pandemic has brought an added level of stress to our lives and to the lives of many. So recognizing these signs of stress can be very helpful. And once we have a better idea of how we experience stress and recognize that we are in fact stressed, we can better consider some different ways to manage it. So to manage our stress, now that we know what it looks like, is tip number 2. So to take some personal time for yourself. Exercise, relaxation, entertainment, hobbies, and socializing are essential parts of our health and well-being. Everyone needs to find a balance that limits stress and helps to maintain our optimal health. Methods can be through meditation, deep breathing exercises, massage, or physical exercise. And the key is to explore a variety of different techniques and to find the ones that work for you. If personal time is limited or maybe hard to come by, consider what might bring you the most joy or ease in the time that you do have. It could be a walk around the block. It could be having a cup of tea while reading your favorite book. It could be chatting with a friend, or maybe even just lying down to take a rest. Do what works for you given the time that you have and what you feel you need on any given day. Tip number 3 is to set realistic expectations. So we often assume our expectations are reasonable, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes our expectations can be a source of stress in and of itself. By identifying what you can change and what cannot be changed, you can single out some of those unrealistic expectations. And then you can focus on what can be a benefit to yourself right away. Our 4th tip is to get plenty of sleep. So as adults, we need at least 7 hours of sleep per night. And sleep deprivation can significantly affect or impair your memory, your mood, and your ability to function. And our last tip is to seek and accept support. This is sometimes easier said than done. But if you're able to reach out to a friend or family member that you trust, talk about what's giving you stress with them, or if those stressful symptoms persist even after you've talked to a trusted friend, then it might be time to reach out and talk to your doctor. Those are our tips for managing stress. And I'm going to hand things back over to Sarah. She's going to talk about the final way to boost your brain health.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so the 6th and final area of brain health that we're going to look at today is making conscious and safe choices. So there's a few sayings that you probably know very well. Things like better to be safe than sorry, or all things in moderation. And these common sayings have more relevancy than ever when it comes to making the right choices for your brain health. Our ability to maintain lifelong brain health is very much influenced by the choices that we make in our day-to-day lives. And, research has found that next to aging, lifestyle and environmental factors are the most influential factors in determining one's risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. Therefore, it's really important to protect your body at any age for lifelong brain health. Make some safe choices that protect you from ailments and trauma that would otherwise increase your risk of developing dementia. Making conscious and safe choices can reduce head injuries, hearing loss, high alcohol consumption, living even near busy roads, smoking. Those are all risk factors for dementia. So let's look a little bit more closely. So there's 5 tips for making healthy choices that are listed here on the screen. And let's go through these together. First of all, we need to avoid habits that harm your body. And examples of harmful habits can include smoking, right? Smoking is not good for your body or your brain health. Listening to music too loudly can damage hearing, and excessive drinking can also lead to an increased risk of dementia. We often say that those kinds of activities, they might seem like fun in the short term, but not in the long run. Over time, they can cause a lot of damage to both your brain and your body. So we need to avoid those habits. The second one here is the importance of protecting your head. We're only given one brain, and we need to do our very best to take good care of it and to protect it always. According to some of the research, past head traumas, especially those that involve repeated concussions, they appear to increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Be sure to wear a helmet if you're engaging in some intense forms of physical activity like skating or skiing or skateboarding, rollerblading, cycling, all of those things that you yourself or maybe children or grandchildren may participate in. It's really important that we set a good example and ensure that children in our care are wearing appropriate helmets to protect their heads. So that's key. The third tip here is to assess the safety of the environment around you. Consider, do you work or live in an area where you are continuously exposed to risks such as loud sounds or vehicle pollution? Does your home have safety precautions in place like handrails or grab bars that are installed to improve your accessibility and to prevent falls? Here's some important stats to be aware of. Falls are the leading cause of injury among older Canadians with, okay, now get this, 20 to 30% of seniors experience one or more falls each year. That's huge. Over 1/3 of seniors are admitted to long-term care following hospitalization for a fall. We need to be aware of any potential dangers in your environment because that can help us to take steps to counter those. So let's look at just some quick tips to avoid the risk of fall and potential head injuries. So some of those may include removing those trip hazards in your home. We often think about when you walk in the front door, do you have a space where you have shoes that are lined up at the door? Maybe an umbrella stand. Those kinds of things could be trip hazards. Move frequently used items so that a chair or a step ladder is not required every time you need to get that salad bowl from the upper cabinet. Are you pulling out a chair or a step ladder? Because if you are, each time you are increasing your risk for a fall. So we might want to bring that item to a lower cabinet so that it's more easily accessible. It is also key to review any medications or any dietary supplements with your doctor, but also with your pharmacist that may be affecting your balance. We do find that from time to time when our body's adjusting to a new medication, that it could potentially affect our balance. So check in with that. It helps to improve lighting indoors and outside so that we can improve our visibility, especially around stairwells, hallways, entrances. Those are key to take into consideration the lighting. Installing and using safety features like handrails and grab bars, especially in places like the washroom, that's key. And also another great way to just make sure that you're staying safe in your environment is to exercise, because that exercise will help to improve your strength and your balance and your flexibility as well. So that if you are to sustain a fall, that you may bounce back a little bit better from that fall. The fourth tip is to track your numbers. And keeping all of those numbers in line when you think about it, doing so will make it a lot easier for you to keep things that are important like your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your weight, and your blood sugar levels all within the recommended ranges. After all of these conditions can increase that risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. So we want to make sure that we're working with our healthcare provider to make sure that we know what those recommended ranges are and that we're staying within those ranges. And that brings us to our final tip, which is seeing your doctor regularly. Seeing your doctor or your healthcare provider for regular checkups will really help to address any specific health concerns that you may have. And that could be related to diet, hearing, having a hearing evaluation done, making sure you have those vision tests, and also, any issues around your physical activity. So your doctor is such an important partner in your health. So, work with your doctor to make sure that you are staying as healthy as possible. Okay, Chris, over to you for our final words.
Right. Well, yes, this brings us to the end of our presentation today. We really hope that you've learned some helpful tips and strategies and that you've had a bit of fun in the process. And we hope that you're going to remember the 6 important areas to consider to boost your brain health. So those were to challenge your brain, be socially active, follow a healthy diet, be physically active, manage stress, and make conscious and safe choices. I really wanted to thank you all for attending. I think at this time, we'll get Sarah to stop the recording, and we're going to stop sharing our screen so that we can take some questions.